Hello, everyone, and welcome to SantaFe101.com. My name is Anna Pacheco. I'm your host today, and my guest is Brad Furry of Santa Fe Properties. Brad, do I have your permission to record this session?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
good.
you
Well,
sure do.
thank you. Well, we've gone back. We've known each other now for what, at least 6 or 7 or 8 years. We had mutual friends, and I know you've been very active in the real estate community now for several years. But you also have a business background. You owned an automobile dealership here in Santa Fe. So tell us a little bit about when you got to Santa Fe, what got you here, and what got you to real estate.
Well, after college, my sister and I were talking about what to do, and we decided that maybe the car business would be a great avenue for us. She was on the East Coast at that time, and she and her husband had both been in the car business out on the East Coast. And so we bought our first store in 1996 in Farmington, New Mexico. And that was a Mazda, Mitsubishi, and Suzuki store. And then about a year later, we were able to get a second store in Farmington, and that was a Pontiac, Buick, and GMC store. And then in 2004, a gentleman, a local here in Santa Fe named Joe Horace, approached us. We had known Joe. He had a Nissan store in Farmington, and then through the New Mexico Automobile Dealers Association. And he thought that we would be a good fit for his Pontiac, Buick, and GMC store here on Cerrillos. And so in 2004, we purchased our store on Cerrillos. And then we had that all the way up until 2015 when we sold to the Garcias. And that was our first foot in. For a long time, we were absentee owners and coming down here on and off every other week.
And you're originally from Durango, is that correct?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Durango, from a family of four, and one of my sisters, like I said, and I and her husband are the ones that started the store. And then in 2010, we had ended up selling the stores in Farmington, and that's when we moved to Santa Fe full time.
And tell me, how did you segue into real estate?
Well, being in the sales field my whole life, it was a fairly easy transaction or move. The grind at the dealership was pretty much bell to bell, 7 a.m. to 6 or 7 p.m., 6 days a week. And so the transition into real estate as our boys got older really helped out, being able to juggle and being able to, show up at a sporting event or show up at a school event and so my husband and I, like I said, have 4 boys. They currently are 21 all the way to 14. And so it was a lot to handle, and real estate allowed me to stay in sales and still have quality time for them at their events.
And why did you choose Santa Fe Properties?
Our slogan at the dealership was locally owned, locally operated, and locally committed. And that's pretty much 100% why I did go with Santa Fe Properties.
And I know we're going, since the COVID-19 pandemic, in March, for at least from what I read, and I have a few friends in real estate, this is a crazy time. Oh, and the California fires are the climate refugees, they're coming out here. So tell me a little bit since March until we're October 20th now. What's been going on with real estate here?
Well, ever since 2008, our real estate market had climbed gradually and was rebounding, maybe a little bit slower than other parts of the country. Home sales had a little more success than, for example, lot sales or commercial, and was growing at a little bit larger rate than those 2 other fields. And that was continuing on. I think in last year, in 2019, I sold a large property on Old Santa Fe Trail. It was 5200 Old Santa Fe Trail, which was well over $7 million property. And at that time, it was the largest sales since the economic collapse of 2008. And
Wow.
so we had, we are rebounding, we were growing, we were moving in the right direction. And then on, the first or second week of March, everything totally stopped. And it
Right.
was literally like, the light switch was just turned off. And that lasted for a couple of weeks, maybe a month and a half. And then all of a sudden, people started calling and started sending emails and saying, you know what, I'm working from home. I'm not going to go back to an office. I realize my employer, or, if they're the boss, if they're the worker, I don't have to be in an office. If I can do it all remotely now, I want to continue to do it remotely. And so that's when all of a sudden the lights came back on, and gradually it just started to rebound. And I think real estate has probably been the strongest rebound in our local Santa Fe economy than anything else. People do absolutely love everything we have to offer: a blue sky, clean air, space, gorgeous sunsets. All of those things contribute to Santa Fe's success. And our food, our culture, our art, all have such a broad appeal that people from both coasts all the way through are, taking a second look at their lives and deciding that Santa Fe isn't so bad. And
And
I
are you seeing primarily work people that are working remotely, or are you still, I know we've been known as a retirement community. Are you seeing a lot of retirees, or still, are we getting an influx of younger people that work remotely?
I think both. We still are always going to be a destination, although we're fairly high in altitude, and that does limit us some with respect to retirees. We are always going to be a desirable place to, live out the golden years of one's life. However, yes, for sure, in every market, or in every segment of our market, from 200 to $400,000 homes, from 400 to 750, every segment of our market is growing, and it is growing widely across the range of age demographics.
And so do you, I know your husband is an architect. Do you sell lots, or do you work together as partners on any of these ventures? Does he help
We
design
have
the home?
actually never worked together with respect to a lot design, build, all the way through. However, we have worked together on some remodels and then some flips. So currently, we're actually flipping a Airstream. So we have gone out and gutted and purchased an older model Airstream and gutted it, and now it's being, I don't know, rebuilt and given a second chance at life. So we've done those types of things, but never for an individual client, all the way from the lot sale through a design and build.
But you do sell lots as well?
Oh
You
yeah, for
personally?
sure.
And so is that for
I'm
people
about
that,
50. I'll go ahead, but I'm about 50% commercial real estate and 50% residential real estate is how my portfolio breaks out. And then some of that is in actual dirt with respect to commercial lots and residential lots.
and do you think, for people listening here, now, do you think that might be a way to go if they have the financial resources to actually build their own, dream home versus buying somebody else's? I mean, is it more cost effective, or is it way more expensive? Not to
Well,
mention
it
the
all
headaches.
depends. Yeah, no, it takes time, right? And so the headaches do arise. Um, I I can't say that it's more cost effective, but it can be for sure. Um, so when you spend the time and you pick out your fixtures and you find fixtures that you love that are on sale, or tile, all those kinds of goods that you can really recoup some of your costs on. then it certainly can be cost affordable and feasible in doing. However, currently, right now, with respect to some of the devastating weather effects and you know the cost of materials is going up also, and so that's making it very difficult with respect to drywall and lumber. And so those kinds of materials are in high demand when a hurricane comes through, or when there's enormous destruction and devastation from fires, etc. So but it has to be an individual choice. Some people love creating and love designing and love taking the time to build, and others don't have that luxury. They just don't have the time or the energy or the desire to do it. And by all means, you and I both have been in this town long enough to know that we have some amazing properties, and they range from 200,000-300,000 all the way up. So
and as a realtor,
great opportunity.
As a realtor, you go ahead, you hook them up with the builders, or suggest builders, or suggest things. You let them, you kind of like lead them in the right direction in terms of like permits, or do you steer people away from different areas because of there's not, it's too expensive to dig a well, or?
No, we just try and inform them, right? I mean, obviously we are in the high desert. There are a lot of places a little bit more remote, very close to town, where well drilling has to happen. And when it has to happen, you can look at some of the surrounding homes and get an idea of how deep their wells are. And then you can present a pretty clear case off of Tano, or off of, Camino La Tierra. Those areas are probably in the neighborhood of 800-foot wells, right? So
Is that
if
deep? I don't know the first thing about a well. You have to go really deep.
Yeah.
And how
Right.
expensive would something like that be to dig a well that deep?
They probably would start at maybe, getting a permit is relatively easy as long as you're in a place that is drillable. So you start with a permit, and the permit, I think that fees have just recently changed, but are less than $200 to get a permit to drill a well from the state engineer's office. And then that, probably would start in the neighborhood of $15,000-$17,000, and then go up from there depending on how deep you do have to go. Most of our water is fairly, good, quote unquote. There's not a lot of contamination or issues with our aquifers, but it can be costly and it can be deep in those circumstances. But it is what it is, and almost all of those areas, La Tierra Nueva, all of them live off of wells, and it's a great thing.
So are you seeing, this is my hometown, so I'm always concerned about how expensive real estate has gotten. When you get inquiries from around the country, and if people, not everybody's going to come out here with a ton of money. Do you try to steer them up north or to down south to Rio Rancho? Or do you say, do you try and help people out with, a second option if Santa Fe can't be their first option?
Of course, our realtor licenses are good statewide. I just recently closed a transaction in Farmington. So it's definitely a plus. I think a lot of people do want to be in Santa Fe proper, but a lot of other folks still just like New Mexico. And if that's northern New Mexico or southern New Mexico, as a state, we have so much to offer, and it's such a great state. So, it's we don't ever try and steer. Obviously, we wouldn't want to do that. We would want to give people just their options, right? This area, the average size home is X, and the average price is Y. And in this area, this is its demographics, and this is all the way to Chama, wherever they wanted to look. We would just show them their options, and this is what your money can buy in this neighborhood, and this is what your money can buy in that neighborhood. And it doesn't really matter to us if it's Rio Rancho or Santa Fe or Albuquerque or Farmington,
Well, you're right.
by all
There are a
means.
lot of options. I mean, Santa Fe is pretty fantastic, but there's a lot of pretty cities and communities. And like you said, New Mexico is incredibly beautiful and it's diverse in terms of weather, in terms of, the culture. And I mean, there are reasons. I mean, you can't go wrong if you're thinking of moving to New Mexico, in my opinion. Of course, I'm biased, but let me ask you,
I am too, and I would agree with that.
you mentioned that 50% of your portfolio is commercial. Are businesses moving out here now? I mean, has there been a trend? Are you seeing that with people that they're from California and they have a business? It's like, I can't do another wildfire. I'm going to shift my business. Are you seeing that?
We haven't seen a lot of new industry moving, but we've seen a lot of shifting in our existing ones. Some are upsizing and some are downsizing. And, I think a lot of it has to do with the pandemic as we reconsider how we are going to be doing business in the future. But a lot of it also has to do with trends, right? Our workforce was, even before this, was transitioning out of cubicles and out of all of us have to be in the same location, right? There were smaller individual locations spread out. And I think that the pandemic has certainly increased that by leaps and bounds. But I haven't seen a lot of big shift. I'm moving 20 employees from California all to Santa Fe, and we need a new building, or repurpose an existing building per se. So yeah, I can't think of anybody like that. But I think that a lot of people need a little bit bigger footprint, and then depending on the industry, for example, restaurants, right? They have to have a little bit bigger footprint right now. And a lot of them expanded outdoors while the weather was so nice. And now they're trying to figure out how to expand indoors. And then other industries like office buildings that, are going vacant because of the fact that their employees are working from home and are going to be able to continue to do that.
If I'm not mistaken, the state of New Mexico, we are the capital, but state employees are still not back in offices. They are still working from home. So yeah,
And
who
that is
knows
correct. Yeah.
and what's going to happen? But is there a type of business that might come out here? And so I'm not thinking of like somebody moving all their employees here, but are there any kind of trends that you're seeing in terms of, are software companies, are there clean industries that are moving out here, or?
I think that most of the industries are already here. I think that, we have some software here, we have some manufacturing here, we have, others that have left also. But I think it's much more on an individual basis. The actual employee or the owner of the company is making the choice to come to Santa Fe and work remotely from here because in this environment, it's much more doable and it's much more desirable to escape the smoke or to escape the weather trends in the Gulf, or whatever the case may be. Even
Except that we do get wildfires here too. Not as bad so far, but we do get them. We're getting close to the end of our interview. Is there anything you'd like our viewers to know about you, or is there anything you want to end with?
Well, not necessarily. Obviously, my husband and I have a huge commitment to Santa Fe. It is in the real estate world right now, but we have 4 boys. All 4 of the boys are in New Mexico growing up. And our commitment to this town and to the buyer or seller's interests is non, it's just paramount. So you and I have known each other for a long time now. And we both have a huge desire to do right by the community, to continue to improve, to continue to understand different cultures, different religions, different ways of life. And there's such a diversity here that it would be our pleasure, and mine specifically, to share that with any future homeowners or sellers.
Yeah, and that is the special thing about Santa Fe. We are all inclusive, and everybody is welcome here, and it's a great place to find a home. Brad, you have been super to spend time with me on this today, and we'll get some more. We'll get you on the show another time. There might be a different area, or maybe your husband would like to talk about architecture. That's a whole other, area that people don't understand about the Adobe or the web. So it's that might be a reason to get you back on, or for sure get your husband on the show. Okay.
There's plenty of terms out there that take some getting used to for individuals not having a vast knowledge of New Mexico, but wanting to look at moving here. There's a vast
And
array
there's a
of
lot of
things that we
pitfalls too.
can.
I've had workers tell me that they've gone to like redo old Adobe homes, and they'll like they're doing something with and all the Adobe just like falls like sand in an hourglass. So I mean, there's some pitfalls to
Yep.
like getting old Adobe homes, and there's got to people need to be aware of that, because everybody's like,
They need to
I want a
breathe,
cool
and they
Adobe.
are actual living structures, right? For
Right.
sure.
Well, listen, you've been great. Thank you for your time now.